Great to be here today. Let's have a vote. I kind of think PowerPoint encourages brain death. So who would like to do the PowerPoint presentation, and who would like to have a conversation? Let's talk. All right. Okay. So first, I'd like to give a shout out. I live in Philadelphia, but I'm lucky to. I speak around the country all the time. I'm lucky to have my dad, who lives in San Diego, with me today, watching. He's got some rotten tomatoes in the back, but thanks. What we do at Multifunding is we listen every day to the stories of small business owners and entrepreneurs, and we listen to what's going on with their business, and we advise them about what we think are the best possible financing options and alternatives for them in the market today, anywhere from SBA to traditional commercial banks, to equipment leasing, to ABL loans, to factoring, to peer-to-peer marketplace lending, to rarely these darn cash advance loans that are killing the business, to pure factoring, whatever it might be. Our job is to get the client in the best possible loan at the best possible situation, to structure them for success, and what we do is get them on a path to bankability. I started the business just about five and a bit years ago. We funded about $140 million now in 41 different states for over 400 clients. So we've heard it all, we've seen it all, and in that work we've used 80 different lenders to place the debt. So let me ask you a question based on the group that's here. Last year, we took a trucking company in California with about $26 million of revenue. They have CPAs, they have advisors, all this thing. And we restructured their debt, and we improved their cash flow by $1 million a year. The CPAs had no idea, had never reviewed the debt. The advisors had no idea, they'd never reviewed the debt. And I think, and one of the reasons I'm particularly passionate about what Anton and the group are doing here, and I choose to fly here today, is I think there's an incredible opportunity for CPAs and advisors to get together and collaborate and find ways to work with business owners on reviewing their debt on a regular basis and improving their debt situations. And it's every year a business, I say it's like go to the dentist. Twice a year you should review your debt, because businesses accumulate debt over the years and then they don't think about it. So maybe 3 years ago they had no choice and they had to get a lease at 15% interest, but today they're great. Or maybe their building was financed one way, but now it could be financed another way. Or maybe there wasn't much equity in the building 4 years ago, but now there is, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe we see it a lot. They started with factoring and they just stick with the factoring because it's convenient, but now they're time for an asset-based ledger line or an asset-based line. So maybe it's time, since the last couple of years, the SBA notched up their limit to $5 million per individual instead of, I think it was $2 million. Maybe a couple of years ago they couldn't benefit from the SBA, but now they can. One of the things we did with that client in Stockton is we put him in an SBA loan for $5 million. He didn't even know what the SBA was. His CPA had never told him. The CPA didn't know. Because most CPAs, from our experience, what they do when they think about lending, they think about a couple local lenders that they know, sort of who they hope will bring them some business. And so they call them when their client has a lending need, or their client asks them about a lending need. But at least from our work, 85% of the loans we place in this new world, the lender and the borrower never meet each other because it's all virtual. It's become a virtual lending world. We have SBA experts who lend nationally. One of them, he loves acquisition financing. That's what he does as a specialty. That's what he's best at. Another one likes motels and funeral homes. Another one likes trucking companies. There are niche lenders, there are niche equipment lenders, there are niche factors, ABL lenders who like different things. So at least our job at Multifunding is to know all these different credit boxes and to try to get the client in the right credit box as quickly as we possibly can so that we can help solve their problem and help get them along their way as quickly as possible. So I don't want to, I can talk all day, but I'm wondering if anyone in the room is comfortable to share a current client that they have who's thinking about or dealing with a financing issue, and maybe we can talk about it. Yes, sir.
I got a question for you there. You said $26 million a year in revenue.
Yes.
Restructured your debt. What was their debt load?
In that case, it was about $12 million.
So we were able to create $1 million in additional cash flow off of $12 million in debt.
Correct. And that's a heavily capital-intensive business. It's a lot of trucks and real estate. But what we find is that with the SBA, if at least 51%, if there's some real estate and 51% of the loan is real estate, you can amortize that loan out over 25 years. So in that case, we took $2.5 million worth of trucks, and we amortized them for him out over 25 years, and dramatically improved his cash flow. Yes, sir.
How small of a transaction do you do? Do you do less than 1 million?
Yes. So our job is to help our clients and grow with our clients. So the smallest transaction we'll typically do is $100,000. Sometimes we'll do smaller for a friend, but we'll go, if there's a way to help a client, we'll do it, and hopefully they'll grow with us.
So do you fund buy-sell transactions?
Sure. Yeah, we're not the funder.
Oh.
Okay. We're the intermediary, we're the advisor, we don't do any balance sheet lending. We think if we started to do that, we'd lose all of our objectivity. Yes, sir.
What are the challenges with local banks that a small business owner would go to compared to the type of financing they would come to you for? And obviously it's a competitive environment, but I'm wondering what are the differences between what you do and what a small, even maybe like maybe even a local bank would do for someone?
Well, sometimes we'll go to a local bank if that's the best solution for a client. The question that, the thing is that the local banks and the banks, they're looking for people with perfect credit, perfect collateral, perfect cash flow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got to be all pristine and all buttoned up. In some cases, something's missing. Okay, so we just, down in Houston.
When you say something's missing in that pristine,
in that pristine world.
Okay, understood.
If you've got perfect credit, cash flow, collateral, character, they'll fight all day long to lend you money at 4.5% or 5%. And then, sure, you're a good candidate for a local bank. And then in that case, you or the CPA might have a better relationship than we do. The issue is that, unfortunately, that's not the case all of the time. And particularly, then the next place to go, if it's not perfect, the next place to go is the SBA. And the SBA, you've really got to, one of the mistakes we find borrowers making all the time is they'll walk into a Bank of America or a Wells or somewhere, they'll walk into a local branch, and they'll be told, well, they're not eligible for an SBA loan by a local branch manager. And then they'll think they're out, but that's not the case. So people, the SBA, if you're out, more often, our rule is to go to 3 SBA lenders with an SBA loan before we rule it out. And it's like, sometimes it's Russian roulette who's going to approve it. But one that one hates, the other ones will love, and vice versa. So even within the SBA, you got to find that right lender who's going to think about how to solve the problem rather than just push paper. And in the process of pushing paper is where the business owners seem to waste so much time. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned local banks first, SBA loans. Is there like a process, and try this source first, then this source, or that source, or is it?
There is, but the process differs upon the situation and what we've got. Is it all purely a cash flow loan? Is there collateral to work with? Do they need equipment? Do they have just AR? Do they have AR and inventory? Is it a bridge situation? Is it a short-term situation? What are we trying to solve for? So there's a process, but the process differs upon the evaluation. Yes, Mark?
Have you found that sometimes going in the front door that the bank assesses what they should be able to do, and then they spend all kinds of time and energy, and then they tell them, forget it?
Yeah, that happens a lot, and that is one of the services that we try to provide. We fire banks. or lenders all the time. If they spend too long, or they screw around our clients, or they don't do what they say they're gonna do, or they don't fulfill a promise, they're done. In our network, at least. So that's one of the biggest frustrations we find. We have stories of business development officers of banks who are told by their managers to keep their pipeline full, even though they know that 90% of the stuff in their pipeline is not gonna get done. But they're all just trying to keep their jobs, right? So we've got to keep this full pipeline, we got to keep borrowers pushing paper and send them through the pipe, through the mill, and they know that most of it will never get done, but they're protecting their jobs. In the meantime, they're causing havoc on the economy. Yes, sir.
So are there certain professions that you tend to have more, like, is it doctor type, manufacturers, or is there like 2 or 3 that tends to be?
In our work, we're industry agnostic. We fund. I wish I could find a pattern, because if I could find a pattern, I could figure out how to find more of them. Our geography generally follows the population, and our industries are all over the place. Advertising agencies, trucking companies, healthcare, franchises, you name it, retail, you name it, we do it. Yes, sir.
How do you get paid for what you do?
We charge no upfront fees, no retainers, no exclusives, and we get paid a small success fee. We average 1.5%, usually paid by the borrower, by the lender, occasionally paid by the borrower. If it's paid by the borrower, it's disclosed up front.
But it's wrapped into the loan.
It's wrapped into, effectively, it's wrapped into the loan. But, you know, and we always tell our clients, if you want to go try it yourself, God bless. This is what we do for a living.
You
Yes, sir.
package everything, is that correct?
We package everything, correct. Yes, sir.
You were asking for a client example,
Sure.
of a client. Would it be interesting to share one our trucking client in Virginia?
Sure. We just funded. Please.
So I'll just explain. CPA, who we'd never worked with before, we came along. We had our first lunch with them. During the lunch, he said, "You know, I got a problem." He said, "I've got a client that's new to me." He said they've been in business about this is their 3rd year. First year they lost money. Second year they made a bit of money. 3rd year they're going to make a lot of money. What's holding them up is the fact that they have about $1.6 million in receivables, most of which is over 90 days. And the reason they're in that spot is because they pay drivers up front. That is to say, they have to pay the driver as soon as the delivery is made. But their clients are very large multinational, including shipping companies, who pay on anything from 90 to 120 days. So a lot of receivables, they've got to get the cash to the people who are delivering immediately. They couldn't get any kind of traditional commercial loan. So at that point, we went to multi-funding, and they are offering a two-stage solution. One is already in place, and the second one will become in place in time, and it will develop depending on how the client's cash flow and profitability works out over the next 12 to 18 months. Do you want to say what the first part of the solution was then?
Sure. The first part, I don't know all the details, but it's a factoring line, 95% advance rates. So in this case, we know the factoring company that, after we vetted many of them, that is perfect for trucking companies. Okay, so the difference between, if you're going to factor, the difference between an 80% advance rate and a 95% advance rate is dramatic, and the rates are reasonable for the situation they're in. But that's a perfect example. It's part of what we do and part of what I call about the debt reviews. So that's what this client needs now. But knock on wood, if everything works as planned, in a year, they'll be ready for a better solution than that.
The interesting part there was that we were really looking for, the client was looking for around $1 million worth of relief, if you like, debt relief. What we're in the position now is they provided a $2 million factoring line, okay? So basically this client now can expand, right, and take advantage of that and keep going in the direction in terms of developing the business. And as you just said, I mean, there will be a second solution once we have 2 years of business performance.
Correct.
Profitability.
Correct. In 2 years, hopefully they'll be ready for a bank. They won't have to factor anymore. Factoring should not be a long-term solution, but in many cases, it's a very necessary and appropriate bridge solution.
So did that end up being like just a gap plan for,
It's a real two-part solution.
as an equity line, not just up front, but where they were able to use it and then roll it, or were they taking all the money at one point?
No, it's like effectively a line of credit,
Okay, yeah,
secured by the AR. They have a borrowing base at any time of 95% of their eligible AR. What we see a lot is cases, not necessarily for this trucking company, where they start with an AR line, but then their inventory builds. And now it's time to improve their borrowing base to include not just their factoring, but the inventory. We have a lot of success with the SBA, came out with a cap line program, which is their working capital solution. And the client can borrow money all in at about 8% and take advantage of that. Yes, sir.
How difficult has your experience been, if at all, regarding construction companies and getting commercial construction companies financed?
Harder, but not impossible. Again, it depends, are they profitable and are they cash flowing and do they have any heavy machinery to use as collateral? And then when it comes down to the question of their AR, the $1 million question is, what's that AR tied to? Are they subs? Are they GCs? What liens are associated with it? So harder, but not impossible. 10-minute warning. So we have 10 more questions, and I'll answer each in a minute. So we've done them, but
Using the SBA as a,
we could use the SBA is not an issue to use a construction. SBA working capital programs.
for perhaps real estate that they may own.
Correct. Real estate or equipment is not an issue for an SBA loan. SBA loan won't do a cap line or a working capital loan against construction. That won't happen. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So, either myself or one of the CPAs I work with wanted to tee you up as a resource, a strong introduction of your services and your 30-second commercial that we should be giving a potential.
Our 30-second commercial is that credit is a lot trickier than it used to be, and our job is to be a totally objective advisor and to help them find the best options and the best strategy for their business for the long run. And we always work and advocate. We never work for the lender, we work for the business owner. And we work all day long in cooperation with CPAs and advisors. And we don't rest unless we get the business owner the best possible financing for them. And they have no risk. If they don't like what we find them, they don't have to take it. And if they find something better on their own, all we ask them is to let us know who that provider was so we can include them in our database for the future. There are some players out there trying to do what we do by having people fill out forms online, and we don't think that's a viable or realistic way to do this. We think of ourselves in many ways like loan doctors, okay? And you've got to listen, you've got to pull it out, and about half the time what the client calls us thinking what they need and what they actually need are very different things.
And then how would the process look like for the CPAs if they want to engage with you and meeting with you and the client?
CPA can be as engaged or unengaged as they want to be, right? We're going to need the CPA's help because we're going to need financials and documents, et cetera, et cetera. But if the CPA wants to be on every phone call with the borrower and the lender, that's great. Some CPAs want that. Some CPAs don't want any of it. That's up to the CPA.
And as far as possible compensation for the CPA through this, how does that work?
Yes, so we are more than willing to rev share some of our fees with the CPA. The CPA may or may not choose to, probably wants to disclose that to the client. There's some people who feel differently about that in different states that we deal with. We do have a compensation program. It's all driven on success. So if we earn a fee, we're happy to pay the CPA a piece of the fee. You have a question, sir?
Right. On your team, are there others besides you, or is it?
We're a dozen people,
Okay.
and we're growing. And oops, and continuously expanding. And what we do is there are different folks in our team who have different expertise and different types of loans. So if it's identified as an equipment lease, it might go to one team member, or a factoring deal, or depending upon the situation. Sure.
So also in respect of the team-based model that we work under, if an advisor brings a successful case, then there's an advisor rev share as well.
Correct. Absolutely.
Can you repeat that question on me? Is that a question or?
It was a comment that there's an advisor rev share as well. Yes. Okay. Other questions? What I'd say, just a few observations, is that most of the time people don't need as much money as they think that they do, and so it's often wise to advise a client to really challenge them on how much money they need and why. Second observation is that we always push the client, at least from our perspective, to think through the cash flow implications. So I'd much rather have a client take a longer amortizing loan without any prepayment penalties, so they've got the flexibility that they need. Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah. I have a client who is a developer, and he went through the financial crisis, so he's purchasing the real estate through his retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot of assets, but not a lot of cash, and he needs cash flow. Is that a situation we can work with?
We'd have to talk about it. So I'm not sure if the 401k owns the real estate, how you could then lever to the real estate to get cash out of the real. I don't know what the 401k implications.
It's just a business. It's a separate business.
Love to talk about it. Maybe we can talk about it afterwards. I'm not sure off the top of my head. So. Yes, sir.
Now, is there any more challenges like restaurants or things like that than any other type of scenario? Or?
Again, restaurants are tougher, but if they're cash flowing, they're fine. If they own their real estate, they're even better. If the owner's credit is good, that's great. It just depends on. I'm less concerned about the industry than the situation. We've done a lot of restaurants. So. Yes, sir.
You should have stopped. You should have stopped.
It depends. Well, it's much. Is there any outside collateral to work with? So, does the entrepreneur have some outside pieces of collateral that we can use? What is the experience of the entrepreneur? Is it an SBA-able loan? And is there collateral in what they need the loan for? So it's not easy. Sometimes we're doing a $5.5 million equipment loan for a startup in Houston today. We've got the equipment as a tangible asset. So the answer is it depends. Yeah.
And you do financing for both receivable and payable, right?
We can do some payable financing sometimes in unique situations. Yes. Yes, sir.
So, if somebody enters into your process looking for the right type of financing. What time frame am I looking at? 3 weeks, 6 weeks? Is there a certain?
We've funded, and I'm starting to feel like my economics professor in college who used to say, it depends. We've funded as quickly as 48 hours or 11 months. Okay, it all depends on how complicated, how well prepared the borrower is, and what the loan product is. But our average time, once we get a file, on average, and averages unfortunately lie all the time, is about 40 days.
Okay.
I think the factoring was done in a week.
Yeah, and that was client, it would have been done faster if the client provided all the information.
Yeah, sometimes it's the client and the CPA that screws us up.
So if we have one more question, let's go ahead and take that.
Yes, sir.
For a buy-sell situation, how do you evaluate the business?
Well, I'm not evaluating the business, the lender's evaluating the business, right? And so but a lot of the question will be driven by how much collateral the business has, if there's AR, if it's going with the seller or the buyer, and if the borrower, the creditworthiness of the buyer, and if they have any collateral to bring to the table. It's been a pleasure. If anyone wants a PowerPoint presentation, let me know.